We're all set. Good evening. This is a meeting of the Fairfield Representative Town Meeting on May 3rd, 2021 for the town budget vote. I'll ask the town clerk to call the roll, please.
Michael Mahoney?
Here.
Veronica Monahan? Amy O'Shea?
Here.
Amy Ruggiero?
Here.
Bill Gerber? Karen McCormick? Cindy Perham? Jeff Steele?
Here.
Alex Durrell? Matt Jacobs?
Here.
Scott Nickel?
Here.
Sharon Pastilli?
Here.
Laura Carson?
Here.
Alice Kelly?
Here.
Meredith Odenak?
Here.
Marcy Spollier?
Here.
Will Diaz?
Here. Here.
Josh Garskoff?
Here.
Joe Siebert?
Here.
Jay Wolk?
Here.
Matt Ambrose?
Here.
Hannah Gale?
Here.
Lisa Havey?
Here.
Tamisha Dunmore? Lauren Bove?
Here.
Mark McDermott?
Here.
Jill Vergara?
Here.
Karen Wackerman?
Here.
Hank Ferentz? Pamela Iacono?
Here.
Christine Messina?
Here.
Pete Tallman?
Here.
Drew Georgiadis?
Here. Here.
Rick Brower?
Here.
Chrissy Kelly?
Here.
Bill Perugini?
Here.
Elizabeth Altabelli?
Here.
Peter Britton?
Here.
Kimberly Grant? Frank Batiste?
Here.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry,
Please
Betsy.
stand.
Yep.
Oh, this is Bill Gerber. I'm here. I was on mute by accident.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
Tamisha's here as well.
And Veronica.
I got Veronica, Matt Ambrose, and Tamisha. Thank you.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to ask everyone to pause for a moment of silence. We lost someone in town this past week, Tom Quinn, who did so much for Fairfield, and he's going to be missed by many of us. And also to remember Representative Chrissy Kelly, who lost her mother recently. Okay, thank you very much. Now to turn to item 2, to consider and act upon the self-supporting funds in the amount of $5,915,040 for the Water Pollution Control Authority for the fiscal year of July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022. May I have a motion to approve this? Anybody? Representative Carson, seconded by Representative Iacono. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's go to a vote. Please unmute for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thanks. The motion passes unanimously.
Easy.
Yeah. The next is item 3, to consider and act upon self-supporting funds in the amount of $189,100 for the regional. Can I ask everybody to try to mute and except when we're voting? There's some background noise. For the Regional Fire Training School for the fiscal year of July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022. May I have a motion for this, to pass this resolution? Representative Alice Kelly, seconded by Representative Ferentz. Is there any discussion? Okay, we'll go to a vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you. The motion passes unanimously. And then we'll go to item 4, to consider and act upon the proposed appropriations in the amount of $333,361,651 for the fiscal year of July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022, as recommended by the Board of Finance for any lawful purpose. The total proposed budget as approved by the Board of Finance is as follows. Board of Finance recommended budget $333,361,651, less non-current tax year revenue of $27,205,744. Net revenue to be raised by current year taxation $306,155,907, plus senior tax relief $3,834,310, plus reserves for uncollected taxes and other credits $5,327,639. Gross amount to be raised by taxation $315,317,856. Looks like Representative McDermott has moved and Representative Siebert has seconded it. And Representative Vergara has asked to make a motion.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Jill Vergara for District 7. I would like to make a motion to reduce the budget by $1,020,000 for the line item 2020 contribution to surplus, object number 58970, contrib surplus.
Is there a second?
Madam Moderator, Representative Iacona, I'd like to second.
Okay. Thank you. Representative Vergara, would you like to address your motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. There is now $4.8 million projected in surplus for this year, which makes our funding level 11.85% without a contribution. That means that the town overtaxed the people by close to $5 million this year. Our fund balance is currently at $36 million, or 10% of our total budget, which is well within our policy range of 7.5 to 11%, and well within the range to maintain a AAA rating. Even in the rainiest of years or situations, like the 2008 crash, Madoff, Superstorm Sandy, the pandemic, roof failures, and boiler explosions, we have never used our fund balance. Other towns treat their rainy day funds much differently and actually do use the funds to shoulder unexpected and costly issues so that taxpayers do not have to shoulder it in one year. Plenty of towns used their fund balance in this way last year. We did not. Instead, we built cliffs that we want the town to pay for immediately now in this 1 year, as well as paying for an overly conservative increase in our fund balance this year. Taxing the payers for an additional $1 million for contribution to surplus this year is overtaxation and is unnecessary, plain and simple. It constituted overtaxation when we had 3.2 million projected in surplus. It's even more so now that we are faced with a 4.8 million surplus.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on this motion?
Yes, Madam Moderator, as the seconder, I'd like to speak to this motion, please.
Please do.
Representative Iacono, District 8. Through you, Madam Moderator, to the first Selectwoman, can you please address the surplus issue that we have before us and walk us through what we've been presented with this afternoon? To the benefit of the public, you did let the entire RTM know this morning that we have achieved this surplus number, and I know that the townsfolk and definitely the RTM would like to hear from you and your thoughts. Walk us through the numbers, please. I also just want to say, as a point of order, it's generally been customary that we've heard from the Board of Finance Chairman, as this entire budget is a recommendation from them. He asked for the courtesy of speaking this evening and was told no. But thank you, Madam Moderator, for allowing the First Selectwoman to speak now on this issue.
Before Brenda gets started, I just want to respond, Representative Iacono. It actually is not typical for the Board of Finance to make a presentation. We had
I didn't say presentation. I said comments. It's their recommendation. Thank you. If we could hear from the First Selectwoman. No,
please don't overtalk me, Representative Iacono. Don't make an accusation. He asked if he could make a presentation, and that's not typically done. I'm hoping he's on the call, Mr. Brown, because it would be very valuable to have him there if we have any questions. Ms. First Selectwoman, please continue.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. As Representative Iacono shared, I emailed you and the leadership today to update you that our surplus, the Finance Department has been updating in preparation of the meeting, and also the Board of Finance's quarterly review. And I shared that the surplus had grown from 3.2 million, which was the number that the Board of Finance had available to them at the time of their vote, to 4.8 million. And as I had asked you earlier today, to be able to have an opportunity to speak to this item prior to any motion being cast. And what I was going to say was that I believed we should reduce the amount by the $1,020,000 because there is a large surplus, but I was going to also share that I wouldn't recommend anything larger than that due to the liabilities that we have facing us, specifically the public corruption scandal and the fill pile issue. So I just wanted to say that, and I support the RTM having this discussion on this motion regarding a reduction of the $1,020,000 because our surplus has grown. And I actually want to thank the Board of Finance for their conservative budgeting and the hard work they have been doing over this past year that allowed us to have this surplus. So it's a good problem to have, and I welcome the discussion and the debate, and hopefully it won't be a partisan debate. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on this motion? Okay, seeing none, we can move to a vote on this. So what we're voting on is not the entire budget. We're voting on the motion to reduce the contribution to surplus by $1,020,000. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Was that an abstention? I couldn't tell. Okay, I don't think so. I think the motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Any other discussion? Representative Gerber, did you want to make a motion? I don't know if that was.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to reduce account 2010 contingency, sub-account 580110 by $180,000.
Is there a second? Representative Garskoff, second. Thank you. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr.
So,
Gerber?
yes. So the 4.8 million unused budget that we now project for this year, it's unclear how we're going to use that amount. But we also have an additional amount that we should be expecting next year that could be in the millions of dollars, because we're using, from what I understand, what I've understood as of recently, we're using the same conservative assumptions that we used for tax collection this year that brought about the lion's share of that 4.8 million. We're using the same conservative assumptions for next year. So we're going to have probably cushions upon cushions. And so normally I'm not averse to having a cushion in the contingency account. We put up $300,000 every year in, for general, like, things that we just don't know. And then we put up an amount for contracts that are under negotiation with the unions, and we put up an amount to reserve for June wages that get paid in July of the following year. And it's my understanding, and a lot of this was in an executive session, but from the gist of what I got from the public discussion, we had a $480,000 unused balance last year that the auditor said should be adjusted down to zero. But it was below the materiality threshold for reporting, so the town passed on that, so it remained on the books. And then the reserve for the current year was built up, excluding that excess. So that excess at the end of the year of $480,000, it was still there. And so my understanding is from the public discussion of the Board of Finance was that going into the budget vote, there was an expectation by at least several on the Board of Finance that $480,000 would be taken down to zero of the excess from the prior year. And the controller said that she had done a calculation. She had missed, I think it was a day or a couple of days extra of work in June, which caused her to believe that $200,000 was still additional amount was needed for the wage reserve. And so the 480, take out the $200,000, that would then be $280,000. And then I think there was an expectation, but at least by many or some on the Board of Finance, that they could then take down the $280,000. But for some reason, which I don't really know, the recommendation from the controller was to only reduce it by $100,000. Some members wanted an executive session. They didn't. It was by party lines. Decided not to go back into executive session. So we don't know why we didn't take down the whole $280,000. But to me, it sounds as if the $180,000 that remained after that $100,000 cut is cushion, and we have used cushion in the past, except we have so much cushion now from this year and what we should expect for next year. It's really cushion upon cushion that I don't think we need excess in this account. And so I'm proposing that we take this down to what we believe is the actual number, and then whatever cushion we have can be used. If cushion's needed, it can be taken. There's going to be an abundance of cushion. So that's why I'm making this recommendation.
Okay, thank you. I just want to ask again if everyone can mute when they're not called on to speak, because there was some background noise. Representative Steele?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. And I apologize. My name says Town of Fairfield because I think it was when I gave the Robert's Rules session. It's still, just so everyone knows. I have a question. So it seems like a pretty drastic number. I do have a question for you, Madam Moderator, to someone on the Board of Finance. I see Jim Walsh there nodding his head back and forth this way. I would like to see what he has to say in terms of the impact this would have on the fund and on the budget in general. So I have that question through you to him.
Okay. Mr. Walsh, would you like to respond? Or somebody else?
You're on mute, Jim.
I think you're muted, Jim.
I don't think we can hear you.
Madam Moderator, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Jim Brown.
Oh, Jim, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were on
hi, Jim.
That's okay. For some reason, my screen is black, but what I would do, what I'd like to do, Mr. Steele, if that's okay, is to bring up Caitlin Bossi, who explained it to us, if she can explain it to you, and then I can fill in if there's still any questions. So through you, Madam Moderator, I'd like to ask our Finance Department or Caitlin Bossi to come on up and explain.
Okay. Ms. Bossi,
Hi. So since we are in public session, I just want to say we need to be a little bit cautious because there are some settlement assumptions in these numbers. Representative Gerber was correct on a couple things, so let me just go back and go into history just slightly. So this $480,000 that he referenced is not from the prior fiscal year. It actually occurred back in fiscal 18, and it was around 800, and that was a past adjustment from the auditor due to being under the threshold for the materiality. So nothing has really happened since then. Fast forward to 2021, and as you guys are aware, all of the contract settlements for department heads and all the open contracts were cut completely from the budget. So as a result, we're somewhat thankful that some of this, we'll call it over accrual, still existed back just last year. So starting at the $480,000 level, which is what we calculated it to be, the over accrual, as everybody knows, 100 of it was cut at the Board of Finance level just last month. The remaining 380, yes, there's two pieces to this. There's the payments made in July for days worked in June. And that happens every year. I calculate what that is, and that has to be sitting in this reserve, or else we have to hit expense for this number. So we've estimated this liability. I used the 2 years ago number, 2.3 million, and approximately for every day extra that needs to be in the accrual, it's about $200,000. So we're covered for 21, and for 22, this budget, we're going to need an additional day, which is additional $200,000. So you take the 480, you subtract out the 100, you subtract out the 200, leaving the 180. The 180 is the sensitivity analysis that we did in the Finance Department. If, for whatever odd reason, this amount that we've estimated at the contract settlement amount, which is kind of what's going on all throughout Connecticut right now, if that changes even 25 basis points, that's the $180,000 less in this accrual. Then we're at zero. The math is zero. I've gone over these numbers with our outside auditor. They're reasonable. He thinks it's reasonable to keep the 200 in there, estimating the July 22 payments for June, and this $180,000 as a sensitivity to the percentage that we think we're going to be settling these open contracts for.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Or Mr. Brown, did you want to?
No, Madam Moderator, I don't have anything to add, but that is the same explanation that we did receive on the Board of Finance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gerber, you have a question?
Yeah, so I think that sounds pretty consistent with what I was saying, is that is so you do a best estimate, which I assume the best estimate is an average of scenarios, right? I mean, so it could be better, it could be worse. And then what you did was take a cushion on top of your best estimate. I mean, best estimate shouldn't be one number, right? It would be an average of different scenarios, I assume. And then,
well,
so
it's
the
not an
25
average,
basis points.
so there's an assumed contract percentage settlement number that we have to assume because we don't know what. So almost every contract is open at this point. There's only one that's not, which is police, which doesn't expire until the end of 22. So any variability in this assumption rate is a risk. It's a risk to negotiations, and it could be a little bit more 1 year, and there's years. These things settle for sometimes 4 to 5 years. So any fluctuation could be detrimental. And if we don't keep this 180 in here, we could potentially be over budget in a certain year if those contract settlements are higher than that rate that we assumed.
Right. So I don't think that's inconsistent with the way I was looking at it, and so it is cushion, and I think in a normal year I would say keep the cushion, but again, we have so much cushion now, so and we're going to have additional cushion next year. It would be my inclination to make best estimates and stick with the best estimates, and that's why I'm making this request, this motion.
Okay, one last thing is I wouldn't call it a cushion. I would call it a factor that's needed in negotiation. Again, if it's a reasonable estimate of our liability in the future. Reasonableness being agreed upon by our outside auditor, and there's a risk, in my opinion, if we do cut this 180.
Right.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions on this item? Okay, so we'll move to a vote. So again, this is
Madam
a
Moderator, I have
sub-motion.
a question.
Oh, yeah.
I apologize.
No,
It's Jill Vergara from District 7. I wanted to see if Finance could calculate for us what the revised mill rate is now that we've all agreed to reduce the budget by $1,020,000. And I'd also like to see what this additional $180,000 cut would bring the mill rate to.
So as a response to this, the mill rate isn't technically set until Thursday by the Board of Finance. So
based on the information that we've been given, how does this impact without considering what the Board of Finance does, based on the charts that we've been given?
So it reduces the expense budget overall, right? So expense and revenue still have to equal. So come Thursday, they'll do that piece of it. It reduces the expense. Jared can come up, and he actually has his cell right in front of him.
Can you tell me the question again, the specific question?
Yes, we've already voted to reduce the budget by $1,020,000. Where does that bring the mill rate increase to now?
The mill rate increase would be 0.78%.
And if we were to pass the $180,000 cut that Representative Gerber has offered, what would that, what is that impact?
I don't know.
Can you calculate it?
The effect would be minimal. I could take time to calculate it.
Okay, because I was under the impression that if we made the $1 million 20,000 cut, the mill rate would decrease to 27.0. So I had imagined that any additional cut would bring it under that and keep it in the 26 range, which we're at right now, rather than raising the mill rate.
It would go below 27. Because that taking out the $1,020,000 takes you to 27 exactly.
Okay, and so this 180,000 would keep us in the 26 range, which is where we are right now.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Cutting 180,000 in contingency would keep us in the 26 range for the mill rate, which is where we are right now as a town.
We're at 26.79 right now.
Okay, and the budget, after we passed that $1,020,000 cut, it brought it to 27. So with $180,000 cut, it will bring us under 27. 20 to 26 something.
We don't know what the Board of Finance is going to do on Thursday, so that's, I think I would defer to the Board of Finance and what they're going to do on Thursday, because ultimately that's going to be the determining factor.
Do you think that the Board of Finance will raise the mill rate if we're able to lower it?
Madam Moderator, it's Jim Brown. May I chime in here?
Yes.
Just because Ms. Vergara brought up, do you think the Board of Finance will raise the mill rate? If you reduce the mill rate, Ms. Vergara, your question is, will the Board of Finance increase the mill rate?
Yeah, it seems like Jared is not answering my question because he's premising it on the fact that you have the final say over the mill rate.
Okay, so we would not, I can only speak for myself, okay, but I would highly doubt that the Board of Finance will increase the mill rate on Thursday.
I would agree with you.
Right. What we have, Ms. Vergara, and to the RTM is we're going to take a look at the tax collection rate, which right now is at, I think it's budgeted 96.56. So we can adjust the tax collection rate, but we would not adjust it to increase the mill rate. I highly doubt that.
Thank you, Chairman Brown.
Thank you.
Did you have anything else, Representative Vergara?
No, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments?
I have one, Representative Iacono.
Okay.
Madam Moderator, through you to Mr. Brown. So then in all likelihood, it's possible that if we were to end the budget discussion right now, pass the budget with the $1,020,000 reduction with a mill rate that's flat at 27, there's a possibility that just speaking for yourself, once you've done the adjustment at the Board of Finance, that we will be below 27 and you could be in the 26 range right now if we froze. Is that correct?
If that would be correct, but what I can tell you, right now we're at an increase of 0.78, correct? So depending on the further adjustment of the 180,000, if it brings it over down to 0.26, I would state that yes, speaking for myself, that's where we would stay.
So even without the reduction to wage reserve,
yes,
there's a high likelihood we're below 27 anyway.
Yes, I believe you are below 27. So right now, the mill rate's at 1.12%. And the increase in the mill rate, okay, is 0.00030. So it looks like we would be at 0.026 something, and that's where we would stay, even without any further reductions. That would be correct.
Thank you.
Representative Vergara.
Yes, Jill Vergara for District 7. I appreciate that it's possible if the Board of Finance adjusts the collection rate, but I'd prefer to take action now so that I make it a certainty. Thanks.
Are there any other comments or questions on this motion? Okay, so we will move to a vote, and this is a motion to reduce the contingency by $180,000. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
McCormick.
Nay.
Nay.
Town clerk, do you think we need to do a name call, a roll call vote? I think I recommend that.
Yeah, please.
Hard to tell who voted for what.
Exactly. Michael Mahoney,
No.
Veronica Monahan,
No.
Amy O'Shea,
No.
Amy Ruggiero,
No.
Bill Gerber,
Yes.
Karen McCormick,
No.
Cindy Perham,
Yes.
Jeff Steele,
No.
Alex Durrell,
No.
Matt Jacobs,
Yes.
Scott Nickel,
Yes.
Sharon Pastilli,
Yes.
Laura Carson, Alice Kelly,
Yes.
Meredith Odenak,
Yes.
Marcy Spolier,
Yes.
Will Diaz,
Yes.
Josh Garskoff,
Yes.
Joe Siebert,
Yes.
Jay Wolk,
Yes.
Matt Ambrose,
Yes.
Hannah Gale,
No.
Lisa Havey,
Yes.
Tamisha Dunmore,
No.
Lauren Bove,
Yes.
Mark McDermott,
Yes.
Jill Vergara,
Yes.
Karen Wackerman,
Yes.
Hank Ferentz, Pamela Iacono.
No, and I see Hank mouthing no.
Yeah, thanks. Christine Messina,
No.
Thank you, Pam.
Peter Tallman,
No.
Drew Georgiadis,
Yes.
Rick Brower,
No.
Chrissy Kelly,
No.
Bill Perugini,
No.
Elizabeth Altabelli,
No.
Peter Britton,
32 weeks.
Betsy, it's Laura Carson. Did you hear me? I voted yes.
yes. Kimberly Grant, and Frank Batiste.
No.
Tie vote 2020. Motion fails.
Thank you.
Oh, man.
Thank you. Okay, so the motion failed. I see that Representative Kelly wants to make a motion.
Yes, Alice Kelly, District 4. I move that we remove the capital request for $60,000 for the town website redesign.
Parham, District 2, second.
Thank you. Representative Kelly, did you want to address?
Yeah,
the
I
motion?
believe that this is not the year to spend money on the website redesign. We're already raising taxes on our citizens. They're dealing with the reevaluation of their homes, and we don't need to add this amount to the taxpayers' burden this year.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on this motion? Okay,
I have a comment,
seeing none-
moderator.
Oh, Representative Iacono.
I'd just like to say that we've had so many issues with our website of late. I think this is worth the investment. Just public notice alone, we need to look at our website. So I will not support a motion to take away money from our information technology capital outlay. Thank you.
Madam Moderator, Drew Georgiadis would like to say something.
Yes, Representative Georgiadis.
I do agree with Representative Iacono that our website has not been up to standards recently, but a lot of that has to do with maintenance, and the redesign right now is not, I agree with Representative Kelly, is that a total redesign of the website right now is unnecessary, and many changes can be made just through better maintenance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Madam Moderator, if I might add, actually, it's not a maintenance issue regarding the website. The entire website is just antiquated. Unfortunately, the prior administration purchased this website design, which is, frankly, unworkable. You can't modify it. It's difficult for our residents to use. They have an extraordinarily hard time navigating, just being able to find simple information. And I would argue that $60,000 wouldn't even save the taxpayers less than a penny, but having a website to be able to get information quickly. And believe me, our residents let me know that they think our website is not helpful. And so in this age of technology, and when residents are trying to find information about services and also about our town meetings and a whole host of other things, I think this is an important investment, and it is a small investment, a small price to pay for good service for our residents. So thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you. Representative Vergara.
Jill Vergara for District 7. I agree with Representative Kelly that I am very focused on trying to limit the burden on the taxpayer right now. I'm in a district where a lot of people's properties were reevaluated up, and they're going to face significant increases this year. And in the face of a $5 million surplus, as well as $25 million in federal stimulus, I think that there are other ways to be paying for this technology, and rather than putting it onto the taxpayer's burden right now. So I strongly encourage the First Selectwoman to think about using the federal stimulus possibly for this, or possibly even surplus for this, because I would prefer for the taxpayer not to have to spend this right now. Thanks.
Representative Parham.
Parham, District 2. I use the website all the time, daily in my job. I've compared it to other towns' websites. And as a former member or current member of the Senior Tax Relief Committee here in Fairfield, I believe our seniors, as well as all people that live in town, all residents, if they can't access exactly what they're looking for, can access department heads or resource as to where to go next. So that is why I'm in agreement with Alice's motion that it's not the year to spend the money. $60,000 is actually a large chunk of change for our town.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of this motion, which is a motion to eliminate the $60,000 allocation to update the town website. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Nay.
Aye.
Nay.
Betsy, I think we need a roll call vote again. Could someone mute? There's some noise in the background. Is the town clerk on?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you now.
Okay, I got Michael. Veronica Monahan?
No.
Amy O'Shea?
No.
Amy Ruggiero?
No.
Bill Gerber?
Yes.
Karen McCormick?
No.
Cindy Parham?
Yes.
Jeff Steele?
No.
Alex Durrell?
No.
Matt Jacobs?
No.
Scott Nickel?
Yes.
Sharon Pastilli?
Yes.
Laura Carson?
Yes.
Alice Kelly?
Yes.
Meredith Odenak?
Yes.
Marcy Spolier?
Yes.
Will Diaz?
Yes.
Josh Garskoff?
Yes.
Joe Siebert?
Yes.
Jay Wolf? Matt Ambrose?
Yes.
Anna Gale? Lisa Havey?
Yes.
Tamisha Dunmore?
No.
Lauren Bove?
Yes.
Mark McDermott?
Yes.
Jill Vergara?
Yes.
Karen Wackerman?
Yes.
Hank Ferentz? Pamela Iacono?
No.
Nina?
No.
Peter Tolman?
No.
George Georgiadis?
Yes.
Rick Brower?
You get that? No.
Chrissy Kelly?
No.
Bill Perugini?
No.
Elizabeth Altabelli?
No.
Peter Britton? Kimberly Grant? And Frank Batiste?
No.
Can I again ask everyone to please mute their speakers or their phones unless they're called on? Thanks.
$19 yes, $21 no.
Okay, thank you. So the motion fails.
I believe that Mr. Representative Ambrose wanted to revise his vote.
I thought I voted yes.
I think it was Representative Jacobs, maybe? I don't know.
I had Representative Jacobs as a no.
That's correct.
Okay.
I apologize. Sorry.
Yep. Okay, so that motion fails. Thank you. Are there any other motions or any other comments on the budget as a whole?
Yes, Madam Moderator?
Yes?
It's Bill Gerber. I have a question.
Okay.
And if I'm out of order or whatever, just let me know. But I wanted to circle back with Mr. Brown about the mill rate. Something I don't understand is he, Mr. Brown, through you to Mr. Brown, are you going to possibly adjust the forecast, the current forecast for collections in line with the actual collections this year? Is that what you were talking about earlier in terms of adjusting the mill rate?
This is Jim Brown, Chairman of the Board of Finance. So, Mr. Gerber, yes. So under reserve for uncollected taxes, currently we are budgeted for 0.9856. What I'm saying is an option. I'm not saying what will happen because I cannot do that. What I'm saying is an option is, well, one option is to keep it right at 0.9856. Another option is to increase that number, 0.9856 to 0.9861 or 0.9867. And as we do that, the mill rate decreases. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So I'm sorry. So the current year budget. The current year budget. Did you say that was not 0.9656?
Well, I'm sorry. The proposed budget of fiscal year 2022. The current year budget, the budget we are in 2021, is at 0.9861.
Oh, so 0.9861 was our current year budget, and right now, based on where we came in with our fourth quarter tax collections, do you know what that rate actually is? The actual is?
Well, the fourth quarter tax collections doesn't have anything to do with what the what the budgeted current budget for fiscal year 22 reserve is for.
No, for 21, we're now looking at 4.8 million of improvement over what we had budgeted for, and you just said that we had budgeted for 0.965. What was it, something?
Okay.
But clearly, it's coming in much higher than that. So
that's correct. It is. So we budgeted for 0.9861, and Ms. Bossi can or Mr. Schmidt can get the exact number, but I believe we're at like 0.988 something.
Right. So that whatever that difference of, if it's 0.988, so I mean the difference, whatever it is amounting to about 4.8 million. So. No, I'm sorry. Not 4.8 million includes other things like positions that have gone unfilled. I don't know what the actual number within that 4.8 million is related to collections.
2.6 million. 2.6
million. Mm-hmm. So when you sit down, you're going to look at that 2.6 million and the current projected rate, and you may adjust that based on the current year experience, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So we should not expect another 2.6 or 3 million next year after you're done your work.
Well, what I would not expect is 2.6 million on the current prior year levy and interest. That's what I would not expect. This is, we budgeted very conservatively last year due to COVID. All of us did, and I think we did the right thing.
Absolutely.
And so,
but it's the same thing that you're using for next year too, right?
When you say it's the same
assumptions for you're using that pretty much the same assumptions for next year, right?
Well, currently, Yes, but on Thursday, based on this year's favorable number of 2.6 million, right? Additional revenue. We may take a look at that 0.9856, which is the fiscal year 2022 reserve for uncollected taxes. And we're going to have a discussion on if we should adjust that based on what has happened this year.
Okay. I mean, it's just looking at it, like, so the current percentage is actually worth, like, so this year's 0.9861, next year's 0.9856. You're actually projecting worse than the current year currently. I don't know how much that difference amounts to, but so we were, ultimately we wouldn't have known this, but we were too conservative this year by to the tune of 2.6 million, whatever that equates to in terms of basis points. And not only that, but we're also projecting that we're doing worse next year than this year. So, I mean, I guess the expectation should be that, I mean, the economy is actually improving versus the current year, and that we should be seeing not just, you know, getting to the current year, but actually a slight improvement, I would think. So I'll wait and we'll see what you guys come up with. But the idea is not to have a cushion there, right? The idea would be to get it right, right?
That would be the idea, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions on the budget? Representative Vergara?
Yes, Jill Vergara for District 7. I wanted to make a motion to reduce the contingency line 2010, object 58010 contingency by $80,000 to represent the amounts set aside for non-contractual salary increases.
Is there a second?
A second.
Well, I'm going to second it. Okay, who's that? Representative Beauvais?
Yep.
Okay. Representative Vergara, did you want to discuss it or?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Moderator. I had wanted to see these kinds of salary increases in the budget to review, and I don't like having it in contingency. I also, just listening to the conversation about contingency, hearing the word cushion, it's just really difficult for me to hear a word thrown around like that a lot in a year like this. And I'm hoping we can come together to get the cut that we were able to achieve, the $1,020,000, to something that brings the mill rate down and helps the taxpayer. This would affect a 1.1 million cut that the RTM can come together on. And I hope that we can do that, because I think that it would help the town. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item? Yes, who's that?
It's for Selectwoman.
Yes, please go ahead.
So I would just comment that I believe Mrs. Vergara, Representative Vergara, is aware that that contingency money, when she's speaking of non-contractual, are our department heads, who, by the way, received zero last year, while all contracted and union employees got their increases, as well as the RTM voted for a 2.4% increase just a few months back for the teachers, which was well-deserved. And I would venture to say that $80,000 to give some increases to department heads who have worked extraordinarily hard during this global pandemic, someone like, say, for example, Sands Cleary, our health director, and our IT director, and people like that who didn't receive any increase last year. So frankly, $80,000 will not move the mill rate at all, but will be a huge difference in the lives of the department heads who have worked very hard on behalf of the residents of this town. And I am asking the RTM to reject this motion. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Representative Pistilli.
Sharon Pistilli, District 3. I have a question. I'm just not exactly sure who it's for, Madam Moderator, so if I can just ask this through you as appropriate. I was just wondering, why aren't the salary increases for department heads in the budget, like in the actual lines that we saw?
Do you mean, why are they in the contingency? Sorry.
Yeah, why are they in contingency? Why wouldn't they be like in?
To reply to that, because I'm not sure they ever were before. Would someone on the Board of Finance who's been on it a long time be able to answer that question?
I'd call on, is Jared, can Mr. Schmidt come on up?
Mr. Brown, it's Representative Iacono. I have a little bit of history with the Board of Selectmen and the charter and how that plays out, if that's helpful.
Yes, go ahead.
So, generally speaking, I can't speak to the accounting of it, but you would have to accrue for it somewhere, and it would make sense that it would be in the contingency, because ultimately, per the charter, there's certain things that the Board of Selectmen vote on when it comes to raises. So I think it'd be a little presumptuous to put it right into the straight line for department heads before there's even been a discussion on how that whole personnel operating line works and what's given out for raises and such. I remember that issue coming up with when Selectman Timniak and Selectman, I don't know if it was even McCardle or Kylie and Mr. Tetro. So that might have something to do with it as it relates back to the charter. You know, how they do the accounting, it makes sense to me then that they would put it in contingency, but maybe Mr. Schmidt has a different color on that.
So, Madam Moderator, I just spoke to Mr. Schmidt and Caitlin Bossy, and because I didn't have this opportunity last year, I didn't have that experience, but apparently in the past, Mr. Tetro and Mr. Flato would sit down and with each of their department heads and do individual reviews, and we have the flexibility of giving specific percentage increases to different department heads based on the work that they did. So you wouldn't necessarily put it in the budget. This is something that the First Select men have had the opportunity to do in the past, and apparently that's what I'm asking to be able to do as well.
Do you mean they had it in contingency? Is that what you mean? By opportunity to do this?
And then they sat down and did evaluations of each of their department heads and then gave them raises based on their performance that one year.
So, Madam Moderator, this is Jim Brown. So basically the salary review is not complete. And right now, Ms. Kupchak does not know who's going to get what.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Representative Vergara.
Jill Vergara, District 7. Frankly, there are a lot of department heads who are quite new to the town, and I don't think it would be appropriate to give those department heads raises. And I do think that it would be appropriate to give Mr. Sands Cleary or Chief McCarthy raises, and we could have easily vetted that and approved that. I think everybody would have approved that. What I don't like is having this hidden in a hidden account that is just being charged to the taxpayer at your whim. So, especially for people who have not been working for the town for very long.
Well, with all due respect, Representative Vergara, that's the job of the CEO of the town. And frankly, the RTM has never questioned that of any of the First Select men. So I find it curious that now it's being questioned by this first select woman.
Well, you know, if my questions had been answered in a timely way, maybe we could have reviewed your answers in a more reasoned way. I asked these questions over 2 weeks ago, and your department decided to send us answers 3 hours before our budget vote.
Representative Vergara, you send hundreds of questions to my departments, and they actually do have to run the town and do work. And frankly, you should be aware of this. You've been on the RTM a while, and this is where these increases go. They go into contingency. As for your other questions, and there were many, our staffers do their best to try to answer the large volume of questions you send repeatedly.
Excuse me, Madam First Select Woman, I actually counted the amount of emails that I sent because I was surprised that I hadn't received answers to several of them. It was under 10 on budget discussions. So I don't think that that's asking a lot. I
Madam Moderator, can we move on with the budget, please?
This is a part of our jobs, and I don't appreciate being berated for doing my job that I was elected to do. And if you don't see it as part of our job, I think that that's problematic.
Okay, let's move on from this.
Please.
From this discussion. I don't know who that is, but Representative Parham.
Yes, through you, Madam Moderator. Cindy Parham, District 2. I do remember last year when the Director of Human Services, Julie DeMarco, received an increase that was in the budget. So is it then normal to say that it could be in the budget, any increases to department heads? Because that was one example that I remember we voted on the last budget season.
That was a reclassification, Representative. That wasn't an increase. It was a reclassification of that position.
Okay, thank you.
Representative McCormick.
Yeah, I just had a quick comment. I'm new to the RTM in terms of this term, and I just think that there needs to be a point made here that, you know, everybody's talking about proposed cuts, and if historically the town that's been run and head in the CEO role has been a Democrat, where were the Democrats asking for cuts in prior budget years? It seems to me that all of a sudden we have a Republican who's in office, and we have nothing but commentary coming from the Democrats now that want to cut basically what appears to be
I think that's a point of order right here.
Yeah,
this is like solid.
You can't question the motivation of your fellow representatives.
Point of order.
I'm not questioning the motivation. I'm just commenting or asking.
You absolutely are asking.
Is this the history?
Questioning our motivation.
Is this the history of this body? Is my
related
point.
to the budget.
Please, I am the moderator, and I'm telling you,
Totally
it's inappropriate. We don't go down this road. Okay. I wanted to just ask a question, and really just so I understand why this is in contingency, because in 2020 there was nothing in contingency, and last year it was $300,000. And I know there are many other things contributing to it, to the big number this year, but I think $300,000, from what I understand, is often what's put in contingency. So I don't know how raises were given when there was zero in contingency. And I'm really just commenting on that because I think it should probably go into the budget for whatever department is increasing those salaries. But anyway, that's just more a comment than a question. And yeah. Representative Vergara. Oh, yes, go ahead.
To speak about this? That your question you just asked?
Okay, thanks.
I just want to clear up, there was never zero in contingency. I think what you guys are referring to is in the budget book where the actuals are in those columns. Contingency is a line item that's always transferred out. So there's normally the 300 in contingency, right? So in 2020, just to go back to your comment, there was budgeted 328,000. So the 28 for raises, you see. So and the 300 is our normal piece. Just to clear that up.
Okay, thank you. Representative Vergara.
Thank you, Jill Vergara, District 7. I really welcome the opportunity to respond to Representative McCormick because I think it's a great question. And this is the worst increase that I've participated on at the RTM level. I have never seen the tax year levy assessed to be over this amount. This is a 5.6% increase in our tax levy. And I haven't participated in anything like that. It's a huge budget increase. I've never seen anything like that before. And on top of what we were dealing with last year, when we're not out of the pandemic, people are still struggling economically. I know a lot of people who have had to move out of town because they can't afford to live here, and that concerns me. And I know, so I see neighbors who are struggling with their costs, and maybe you're not dealing with the same thing, but I certainly am. So there's your answer. That's why I'm very concerned about this in this year. And I'm trying to do everything that I can to get the costs down as best I can.
Representative McCormick.
I've looked at the numbers, and in fact, if you look at the prior years where there's been a revaluation, the increase to the mill rate in comparison to those prior years is nowhere near the highest that it's been. I think if you go back, I think we went back 10 or 15 years. So I don't know what numbers you're looking at to suggest that this is the outrageous increase, but based upon the calculations that I saw, this is not an outrageous increase based upon the fact that we're in a reval year where property values have gone up substantially, unfortunately, in the past 12 months. That's just the way it worked out. But, you know, most of our budget is driven by our expenses. And if 85% is Board of Ed, and nobody's looking at the Board of Ed to touch anything, which I can understand, the Board of Ed needs their money, then it's only fair that, you know, when you start nickel and diming, you know, a $60,000 website fee, that's not going to really amount to more than pennies in a taxpayer's pocket when in fact the entire town can benefit from that modernization of the website. I don't know what numbers you're looking at, but everybody keeps spinning these numbers as a 5-point-something% tax increase. And as far as I can see, I think that's completely false and trying to sell a bill of goods to the taxpayer that's telling a different narrative than what's really truthful.
No,
so that's my response to that. Thank you.
I do want to say it is true. There's two different numbers. One is the increase of the budget over last year's budget, and another is the mill rate. And the increase over last year's budget is the 5.6%. And Representative Vergara, you could correct me if that's incorrect. The mill rate is a different number, but that percentage increase in the budget is very high, and I've been on as long as Representative Vergara. I've never seen an increase like that.
When was the last time you had a 0% increase? When was the last time you had a 0% increase in the year before? Look at it on a 2-year basis, split it up in 2, and the increase isn't that high, in my opinion.
Okay, that's your opinion. Representative McDermott.
Yes, Madam Moderator. Thank you. Mark McDermott, District 7. We have a motion on the table right now, and we're talking about the entire budget. Could we either vote on the motion and then move on to the budget vote?
Mm-hmm. That's a fair point. So the motion on the table is whether to cut the contingency line by $80,000. Is there anything else on this particular motion? Representative Nickel, did you raise your hand? Oh, okay. Any other comments on this motion? Okay. All in favor, please say aye. We may have to do a roll call vote again, Betsy. Betsy, would you mind doing a roll call vote? I think it'll probably be necessary.
Mike Mahoney? Mike Mahoney?
No.
Mike, what's your vote?
He said no.
Thank you.
He said no, Betsy.
Thank you. Veronica Monahan?
No.
Amy O'Shea?
No.
Amy Ruggiero,
No.
Bill Gerber, Bill Gerber, Karen McCormick,
No.
Cindy Perham.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Cindy.
Yes.
Jeff Steele, Alex Durrell,
No.
Matt Jacobs,
No.
Scott Nickel,
Betsy, do you skip the rest of District 2? I didn't get called. This is Jeff Steele.
Jeff,
Yeah, no.
Scott Nickel,
Yes.
Sharon Pastilli,
No.
Laura Carson,
Yes.
Alice Kelly,
Yes.
Meredith Odenak,
No.
Marcy Spolier,
No.
Will Diaz,
Yes.
Josh Garskoff,
No.
Joe Siebert,
No.
Jay Wolk, Matt Ambrose,
Yes.
Hannah Gale,
No.
Lisa Havey,
Yes.
Tamisha Dunmore,
No.
Lauren Bove,
Yes.
Mark McDermott,
No.
Jill Vergara,
Yes.
Karen Wackerman,
Yes.
Hank Ferentz, Pamela Iacono,
No.
Christine Messina,
No.
Peter Tallman,
No.
Drew Georgiadis,
Yes.
Brower,
It's bullshit.
Can everybody please mute if you're not answering the roll call?
Chrissy Kelly,
No.
Bill Perugini,
No.
Elizabeth Altabelli,
No.
Peter Britton,
No.
Kimberly Grant, Frank Batiste,
No.
Bill Gerber, I didn't get your vote.
Yeah, I vote no.
Thank you.
Rick Rao, I didn't hear my name, but I vote no.
Thanks, Rick.
I'm crying.
Motion fails. 12 in favor, 28 opposed.
Oh, man.
Thank you, Betsy. Okay, so we can move to the general budget vote unless there's any other comment, any other comment about the budget in general? Questions, anything else?
I have a question. Jeff Steele.
Okay. Yep.
Jeff Steele, District 2. I had through you, Madam Moderator, a couple of questions for Mike Cummings, if he's on the call.
Mr. Cummings, are you on?
I am on.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Okay, great.
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We haven't talked at all about the Board of Ed budget, and it represents such a large part of our budget. And I had a couple questions. I know there's been some issues or some sort of savings that have surfaced, and I just wondered if you could clarify them, and specifically, and correct me if I'm wrong, But the ESSER funding, I've heard 600,000, American Recovery Act, around 1.4 million of money back. But also, has there not recently been an increase in the insurance savings from 500,000 to now 1 million? Maybe you could just clarify some of that and sort of let us all know where some of that stands.
Absolutely. So going back to the grants for a second, the SR2 funding is around $1.2 million. We've put in our application for that. We've talked to the Board of Ed about this as well. So a great majority, and that's a 2-year grant. So you're putting in the funding for both this year and next, the request. And the great majority of that funding is going to be for summer school program to address the learning loss that's occurred among our students over the past year. And again, that'll be both summer school this year and summer school for next. The American Relief Plan funding, we have not gotten details on yet. I believe that's coming this week. That I understand is about $3.2 million, 20% of which has to be used to spend to address the issues of learning loss, whether that's a summer program or an in-school tutoring program. And again, we've not yet received details on that. As far as the health insurance, that is correct. The state has revised its rates again, and we learned late, or I guess it was last week now, that expected savings was around $1 million. And Ms. Munsell is on the call if you want further details on that.
But just a couple of quick follow-up questions, and maybe she can address them.
Sure.
So the ESSER funding, that makes sense. The Recovery Act, she said it's 3.2 million. That's 1 year's essentially, right?
It's that grant. Thank you. I should have said that. That grant it extends through, from what we understand, the calendar year 2024. So from what we understand, again, by December of 2024, the goal is to come up with a funding plan or a spending plan for those. But essentially, it's almost 3 years.
Okay, and you said 20% is earmarked for sort of summer learning and learning, as you mentioned. What is the other Is the other 80% to use as needed, or is that earmarked as well?
No, and again, our understanding is that the only earmark is the 20% for the learning loss. The other funding is going to be related to COVID-related expenses or district improvements. It could be used for capital projects, things like that. One of the requirements of the grant, this is both for the school system and for any towns receiving funds, is that there be a conversation with stakeholders to get input on how the best spend those funds. So that's again, we're hoping for more guidance. We're hoping for a little bit of a timeline to be able to turn that grant around effectively, so that we can have those conversations with people.
Okay, and so the $1 million of savings, that's quite a bit. Yeah, I know in the past when Dr. Title was superintendent, there were times when he was okay with giving back that savings to taxpayers. I mean, what do you think about that? And before you answer, we just talk a lot about the cushion and limiting the burden on taxpayers, and they are ripping apart the town budget. I'm a big supporter of the education budget. I just think when we have savings of this magnitude, is there any thought about giving some of it back to the taxpayer? What are your thoughts?
Well, a couple cautions. One is that we're still in open enrollment, so the finalization of what that savings will be is still in process. We should know more. The open enrollment concludes this week. We should have a better understanding of that, I would think, by next week. But the other issue is that already we're facing, estimated budget cut of $2 million. So one of the things that we've been working on since that cut was recommended is minimizing the educational impact on kids. So while I recognize the needs of the town, I'm also very concerned about the needs of the students.
As am I. That's all for right now.
I have another question if I'm not, are we, Madam Moderator?
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Representative Gerber had a question first.
Yeah, just a reminder to Representative Steele that the original cut to the Board of Ed was $2 million. And so now they have to find $1 million. That's a big cut for them, considering these other things are for earmarks. So this is $1 million cut to the general budget, which is pretty material. I think you probably know that. It's going to require stuff that's going to hurt probably. But the other comment I'd like to make is, I take tremendous offense at you calling it nickel and diming because, I've been on this board for a long time now. I've seen your side of the aisle champion things much smaller than this. I think the stuff that was proposed tonight was proposed out of good faith. Representative McCormick, just absolutely disgraceful what you said. So I think, the idea that we're trying to get, especially with
Point of order, Madam Moderator. Really, let's just stop with casting, name calling, and can we move to questions and points, please?
I made a good faith proposed adjustment. I was just told I was nickel and diming by someone that I usually respect. I think it's outrageous to have to listen to this.
This is a personal debate. It was a general comment not directed at a representative. Point of order. Can we please get back to budget?
Pam.
I retract the comment nickel and diming, Bill, okay?
Yeah, thank you, because you know that you've made much smaller adjustments in the past and on much smaller annual.
Yeah, Bill, we got to stop this. I was more comparing to what we're doing in the town versus a big savings that could take place in the education side. So I take back that term.
Okay.
Yeah, Bill.
Representative Vergara, and then Pam, then Representative Iacono.
I saw Chairwoman Vitale's hand up, and I would like to defer to her. I'll give her my time.
Okay.
Thank you. Christine Vitale, Chair of the Board of Education. I just want to reiterate what the superintendent said, and just to remind this board that we are facing a $2 million reduction to the Board of Education budget. We are still dealing with the ramifications of the pandemic. Thankfully, things are looking much brighter. In terms of the federal funding, the 20%, that was a minimum estimation in terms of 20% for learning loss. The Board of Education could choose to spend more than that to address the needs of our students. It's also meant to address the social emotional needs of the student.
Emotion, wow.
Excuse me, hang on 1 second. There's somebody whose mic is on, and I'm hearing even some swears. So you just really need to mute yourself unless you're called on to speak, okay?
Budget Zoom call that's just interminable.
Who is
Mute your phone. Mute your phone.
Yeah, mute your phone, whoever that is. I'm sorry, Christine. Please go ahead.
That's okay. And just the federal funding is not meant to supplant local funding, which we've shared before. So thank you for that moment to speak, and I'll give the floor back to you. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you. Representative Iacono.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Through you to Mr. Cummings. Your board is under discussions right now about the open choice program, and I understand in listening to that conversation that's something that you classified as a potential revenue increase if changes are made there of $500,000. Is that correct, Mr. Cummings?
Ms. Iacono, yes, that is correct. If depending on the amount of students, basically the way the state law works, we have 70 students expected to return next year. Under the statute, if the district were to increase its enrollment, and we get, let me take a step back, and we get $3,000 per year for each of those students. If district were to increase its enrollment by 50%, so 35, 36 students, the one-time price or payment for those students goes up to $6,000. Again, that's just for 1 year. So we budgeted, I believe, $222,000 in revenue for, at the time, what were 74 students. If we were to go up to 106, it would be 32 more students. 106 times 6, what, $636,000, and then the difference would be what, $414,000. I'm just doing that off the top of my head. So again, this would be a decision that the Board of Ed would make as they review the budget in response to the RTM's final decision.
Right. So, and I'm sorry, you cut out just on me a little bit. So you're looking at a potential of $400,000 to $600,000 increased revenue?
No,
or it would be land around 400,000. Is that?
That would be the difference maker if the board went to the 106 students total. The difference would be about $400,000, a little bit more than $400,000. Because we did budget to 222.
You budgeted to 222. If you go above it, then you're looking at an increase of then 460 something thousand, right?
So yeah, I believe that's right. Again, if the board made that decision, yes.
Right. All right. So round numbers, let's just say $500,000. So you've been reduced by $2 million. You're looking at a potential revenue increase of $500,000 on the open choice program. You received $1 million in insurance savings. You're getting American Recovering Fund in the amount of $3.2 million. And while you don't want to build cliffs, you can use some of that money that is eligible for one-time one-offs to supplement you there. You've got the SSR2 money that's dedicated to summer school. You have to take out 20% of the American Relief for $640. So pretty much net, you guys really aren't looking at much of a reduction, I would think.
I would dispute that. We have started to do that work, and I would tell you that I think that there is going to be reductions in staffing as a result of this.
Really, after the replacement of almost $1.5 million and then additional money from.
Well, you're making the assumption that one, the $1 million will come in health insurance, but two, that the board will vote to increase the open choice enrollment by such. And we're not sure that that's actually going to happen. So, you know, it's very clear. We're looking at ways to minimize the impact on students in all ways possible. But I would say to you that I would expect to see some reductions in FTE.
All right, and the board continues, and you're still committed just to continue to look at the structural change. I would think that as you look in the reductions in FTE, that you would fold that into some of the structural change that you're looking at.
Absolutely, Ms. Iacono. I think that you know, as we've talked about before, this is long haul work that we have to do, and we are just beginning it, and we're looking at this as an opportunity to begin that work.
That's excellent. Thank you. So, you know, I think that was important for the public to know. There's been a lot of, you know, just as a way of process, questions that come back and forth through the RTM. The moderator and the clerk do a good job of getting all that information posted. But I think it's good to get that all on the record for everyone to hear and understand exactly what numbers everyone is dealing with. And the fact that you will look at that and use that as an opportunity for this structural change. Thank you, Mr. Cummings. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on the budget? I'm just going to give my personal comment that I feel the town budget is too high, and for that reason, I won't be voting. And I'm disappointed that the Board of Ed budget was reduced. So for that reason, I plan to vote no on approving the budget. Just before we move to the vote, I wanted to get that on record. Okay, so let's move to the vote. Betsy, I think this will have to be a roll call vote. This is a vote for the approval of the entire budget.
Mike Mahoney?
Yes.
Veronica Monahan?
Yes.
Amy O'Shea?
Yes.
Amy Ruggiero?
Yes.
Bill Gerber?
No.
Karen McCormick?
Yes.
Cindy Perham?
No.
Jeff Steele?
Yes.
Alex Durrell?
Yes.
Matt Jacobs?
Yes.
Scott Nickel?
No.
Sharon Pastilli?
Yes.
Laura Carson?
Yes.
Alice Kelly?
No.
Meredith Odenak?
No.
Marcy Spallier?
No.
Will Diaz?
No.
Josh Garskoff?
No.
Joe Siebert?
Yes.
Hey, Betsy, it's Laura. I meant to vote no. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Jay Wolk? Matt Ambrose?
No.
Hannah Gale?
Yes.
Lisa Havey?
I'm going to vote no.
Tamisha Dunmore?
Yes.
Lauren Bove?
No.
Mark McDermott?
No.
Jill Vergara?
No.
Karen Wackerman?
No.
Hank Ferentz? Pamela Iacono?
Yes.
Christine Messina?
Yes.
Peter Tillman?
Yes.
Drew Georgiadis?
No.
Rick Grauer? Chrissy Kelly?
Yes.
Bill Perugini?
Yes.
Elizabeth Altabelli?
Yes.
Peter Britton?
Yes.
Kimberly Grant? Frank Patisse?
Yes.
Overall budget passes 23 in favor, 17 opposed.
Thank you. Okay, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Motion.
Second by Representative Woke. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. We'll see you at the end of the month at our regular meeting.